Hello, I think we're streaming now. Let me check that very briefly and okay, that's there. Should I turn this on from here? Live, okay. And now I'm checking from my phone. Just hold on a second. We're going to review Tucker Carlson's interview to Javier Milei in a moment, in English, of course. Paste. Maybe here, paste. Moment, in English, of course. It does work perfectly. Awesome. Let's get us started. So I was working, just take a small break from work to comment on this. Let me see. There's that. There's the okay. So this is the interview. The numbers are pretty wild. It says it has 400 million views, and I have read some reports that this number may not be entirely true. Like it's not like actual plays to the video. Maybe X or Twitter is doing something with the numbers that, but despite that, is a lot more than any other interview that Tucker Carlson has on Twitter. So the idea is to be real. Okay, so let's go with it.
The capital of Argentina. This was once, about 100 years ago, one of the richest cities in the world, and you can tell as you walk around. We're in downtown Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. This was once, about 100 years ago, one of the richest cities in the world, and you can tell as you walk around the faded grandeur of a once great city, but this is now a desperate country. Its economy is in shambles, has been for a long time. Argentina famously defaulted on its debt more than 20 years ago. But now hyperinflation has made this country genuinely desperate. You see it when you have dinner here in restaurants and people pull out bricks of local currency, the peso, to pay. It feels like Weimar or Zimbabwe, but it's not. This is a developed country that's moving backwards at high speed. And because of the frustration that has built up among the population, particularly among poor people, a man called Javier Milei is poised to become its next president. He's a former soccer star, a goalie.
This was back then when he didn't win the election yet, so nobody knew if he was going to become the president or not.
A performer in a Rolling Stones cover band.
This thing that he was goalkeeper, I think he played on not on one of the major teams, in a small one, but it's something he did on his career as a young person.
And a libertarian economist.
And then the band thing, I also had a band without success, and it's just something you do when you're young.
He's not a libertarian in the traditional American sense. He would.
That thing that he says is not a libertarian in the American sense. I actually have to dig deeper into what he means by that, because from my perception, Milei hates taxes. And that sounds pretty libertarian to me, so I will have to double check. Let me know in the comments why he may not be libertarian in the American sense. I first learned about libertarianism in the year 2002 because there was a campaign launched by New Hampshire state, the Free State, inviting people from all over America, United States, to go live in the Free State because they had lower taxes, lower than any other state at that time, and there was a lot of literature that they promote for people to read about libertarianisms and freedom and things like that. So that's what I learned about this, and I've been following libertarianism and promoting it on Argentina and, well, whatever place I were at. And, well, obviously Milei thinks very much as I do, and I do as he does.
Didn't fit into the Cato Institute, which has attacked him for liking Donald Trump too much. He's a libertarian in the traditional sense. He believes people should have the maximum amount of freedom they can be given, which is a lot, much more than they now get in Argentina. He has moved from basically nowhere in the last several years to become maybe the most famous person in this country. The election is next month in October, and once again, it seems like he's likely to win. The reception he's gotten from the press in the West, particularly in the United States,
he was likely to win, and there was something that was happening with him. So he promoted himself on regular news media stations, and there was, so we were coming from almost like 16 years of Peronism, or this leftist government, and there was a TV show, where there was kind of a circle and a lot of, invited guests discussing, and these discussions were very heated, and that's where I think Milei gained most of his popularity. His first appearance was like 9 years ago, first appearance on TV, and then he got invited to a show. Is a panelist, I would say, like somebody who makes comments on the side, and every time he talked, they saw the rating numbers going high, and for that reason they kept inviting him over and over and over, and everybody, like every time he talked or he was guest on any program, rating numbers went up. And if we know something about regular media casts, is that they follow the rating numbers, and for that reason they kept inviting him, and well, the rest is history, right?
States. The New York Times, the Washington Post, also the Financial Times has been hostile, to put it mildly. They describe him as a far-right figure, like he's a Nazi. Is he? We sat down with him at great length just a moment ago, here right across from the president's mansion, the Pink House that he hopes to soon occupy, to find out what he's like. He didn't seem very radical. Continuing what they're now doing in Argentina seems radical, in fact insane. But judge for yourself. Here he is. Thanks so much for joining us, or for letting us come and interview you here in Buenos Aires. So why do you think, from your perspective, you've become a man with no political background, so popular so quickly in this country?
Yeah, by the way, he ran for a political career only 3 years ago. He started, and he had a successful campaign to become to be on the parliament as a deputy, and then 2 years later he started running for presidency. So the elections here are every 2 years. Every 2 years is just deputies and senators, and then the other 2 years is president and then governors and things like that. So it's like 2 and 2.
Desde mi punto de vista hay dos líneas que explican por qué la popularidad. Una tiene que ver con mi background personal, que tiene que ver con el hecho de que he sido jugador de fútbol, al mismo tiempo he sido cantante de rock and roll y además soy economista. Y creo que esa combinación es una combinación atractiva en términos de producto televisivo.
Hold on, I need to move my face so you can see the subtitles. Sorry for that. So, but he's not saying anything. It's like he's just a TV product, something like that.
Pero por otra parte, lo que también es importante es el tema de las ideas. Y Argentina básicamente es un país que lleva 100 años abrazando las ideas socialistas, y entonces la rebelión natural del sistema era ser liberales, Y es por eso que la rebelión natural aparece siempre en los jóvenes, y los jóvenes encontraron a alguien que les hablaba del liberalismo, que se rebelaba contra el status quo.
I don't understand how people with power in Argentina could support the status quo, given that your inflation rate is up there with Lebanon and Zimbabwe and other countries that aren't real countries, but your country is beautiful, abundant natural resources, intelligent, well-educated population, and yet its economy is in shambles. How could so clearly the system isn't working. How could anyone support that?
Let's see what Milei says.
A ver, el problema es que Argentina empezó a abrazar las ideas socialistas hace más de 100 años, y siempre es buena la analogía o la metáfora del sapo en el agua. Y entonces uno empieza a calentar el agua y el sapo no se da cuenta. Pero llega un momento que cuando se quiere dar cuenta es muy tarde y termina muerto. Argentina empezó a abrazar las ideas del socialismo, y con una frase que luce muy atractiva, pero que es terrorífica en términos de funcionamiento del sistema económico, que es la idea que donde hay una necesidad nace un derecho. Y eso es un problema porque las necesidades son infinitas y los derechos alguien los tiene que pagar.
Here he's doing something very important, which is he understands that a lot of people who's watching this interview don't know anything about him or anything about his message. But if somebody from Argentina will have asked that, will have gotten a different response. So the response that he usually provides with that is like, how? So the question was, how could like well-established and respected politicians could get going with the current government measures, given that the inflation rates are so high? And if you check, it's not that inflation rates are high. It's like Argentina inflation graph. But is that the inflation is wild. It's like every month. So we used to measure inflation annually, and then we started measuring it monthly, and then we started measuring it weekly, because monthly is too high. Inflation rates, Argentina. Let's see. Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. These numbers are so weird. What does this mean? Inflation calculator, no thanks. Okay, here we have it. So 2017, 20%, 19, somewhat 50% inflation rate per year. 2022, 60%. Well, this is pandemics. I don't know about this. And now around 180% inflation rate per year. 94, year 22, 21. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense. Close to 100% inflation rate. That means that if you had 1,000 pesos by January 1st, on January 1st, 2022, by January 1st, 2023, this can purchase half the amount of goods you were able to buy 1 year before, because 100% means that. Now we're close to 200%. Today, maybe in 40 minutes, we are going to know. Today is January 11, 2023, we're going to know the inflation rate of December 2023 and the year inflation rate of past year. So the reply that Milei will provide is that because there's a rhetoric from politicians right now in Argentina, or not right now, but in the past government, that said that the reason you generate inflation is not because you print money or do weird monetary handlings on the central bank, but the reason is because producers and stores raise the prices. That's weird. So I don't think they believe that to be true. But if people believe that, they can continue going on, and they get rich themselves. And everybody who's a deputy increases their quality life greatly. So I don't think they care. That's the reason. It's like somebody who is kind of selling drugs. They don't care who's consuming. They just care about themselves, their family, their circle.
Y el problema es que los recursos son finitos. Entonces, frente a la situación de necesidades infinitas y recursos finitos, aparece un conflicto. Los liberales ese conflicto lo resolvemos fácilmente, que es con libertad de precios y propiedad privada, y eso es lo que genera el mecanismo de coordinación para resolver esta tensión en la sociedad. Sin embargo, la idea de la mano invisible a los socialistas no les gusta, y ellos prefieren la garra del Estado y básicamente lo esconden detrás de la idea de la justicia social.
Yeah, so I believe the invisible hand is an outdated term. It's explained more than 100 years ago. We had a different perspective from the world, but he makes playing with words, saying that they prefer the claw of the state that grabs and it doesn't have a bottom. Yeah.
Donde la justicia social es profundamente injusta porque implica un trato desigual frente a la ley precedido por un robo.
That's very interesting. So he's saying that we should all be equal, so the law should be applied equally to everybody. And he's saying that, so there's kind of the collectivists or people from the left think that if somebody is rich, then for that reason, that's a bad person. And nobody should be rich if there is poor people. I mean, yeah, obviously, it's like you see somebody that has hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's like, that's weird. But he has that for some reason, unless he inherited that. But yeah, I don't know. The world isn't a just place. It's not just. But it's the way it is. I mean, you're not going to making it more just by robbing the rich and giving it to the poor, because then that breaks the incentives of working and doing things and creating companies and things like that. And then you become Argentina.
I didn't fully appreciate the degree to which the Argentinian government had embraced fringe, academic, American-style social justice. A businessman told me at lunch today that people who identify as transgender pay lower taxes. 2019, you had a Ministry of Women and Diversity created in this country for the first time. What does that ministry do?
Bueno, supuestamente se dedica a ocuparse de los temas vinculados a las mujeres. Sin embargo, cuando uno mira los resultados, no han logrado ningún resultado. Es decir, hacer canciones...
Are women happier here?
No. No, porque en realidad no hay resultados. Es decir, pintar un banco de plaza de un color rojo o hacer una canción, eso no modifica las condiciones o los problemas que pueden estar padeciendo las mujeres. De hecho, probablemente uno de los mayores logros del liberalismo es la igualdad ante la ley. Y este tipo de ministerios, o sea, porque la pregunta es, entonces, ¿por qué no hay un ministerio de hombres? No solo eso.
And then he's saying, why isn't there a ministry of men if there's a ministry of women? That ministry has been closed since Milei became president on December 10, about a month ago.
Sino que además, digamos, si tenemos igualdad ante la ley, lo que necesitamos es que la ley se cumpla, no que haya un ministerio de la mujer. De hecho, es más, parten de premisas que son absolutamente falsas.
I agree.
Ejemplo, dicen, no, el techo de cristal para las mujeres y que las mujeres ganan menos que los hombres. Y al mismo tiempo sostienen que los empresarios son unos cerdos malditos, ¿sí? Que lo único que les importa es ganar plata. Entonces, si los empresarios son cerdos malditos que lo único que les importa es ganar plata, la pregunta es, ¿por qué si yo entro a una oficina no está plagado de mujeres? ¿Tendría que estar lleno de mujeres? Y sin embargo, cuando uno mira, la distribución es bastante pareja y en línea con la...
So he's saying if the wages of women are lower than men, then rich capitalist pigs will pick more women to work because they will be able to pay less on salaries, which doesn't happen.
población. Por lo tanto, lo que uno ve es que cuando sale de los valores promedios y que tiene que ver con las decisiones en agregado de hombres y mujeres respecto a qué profesiones elegir, uno ve que cuando hace la corrección por el tipo de profesión y tipo de trabajo y demás, las remuneraciones están arbitradas y la realidad es que todas estas regulaciones y restricciones que impulsan este tipo de organismo como el Ministerio de la Mujer, lo único que hacen es crear una discriminación positiva, o sea, una affirmative action, que es discriminación, que además a mí me parece absolutamente ofensiva para las mujeres, porque implica tratarlas como seres inferiores, lo cual me parece verdaderamente aberrante, pero además...
I agree with that. By saying that women need, actually, like women need men to help them out, having better wages. They're just basically saying that they are inferior, which are not.
Genera comportamientos opuestos a las mujeres que terminan perjudicando a las mujeres.
I agree. So he was saying something that Jordan Peterson says, which is basically women tend to pick different kind of jobs than men do, and they execute the jobs in a different way. And there's a lot of literature about that. So it's not something that I'm saying. I'm just repeating what I hear. And what Milei says, I agree with him. In that, yes, very much so.
Pasa lo mismo de siempre. Toda acción estatal genera un daño más grande que lo que quiere corregir. Ejemplo, en Argentina quisieron corregir el problema con los alquileres. Pusieron una ley de alquileres, ahora estamos muchísimo peor.
So I feel so good when he says that. All state action causes more harm than what is supposed to correct. And I have plenty of discussions about this, which is everything the state does, it doesn't do it properly. For certain, not better than the private industry. So, for example, the state was obviously in charge of the health efforts during the pandemics. And in Argentina, the database of all the tests went public it was hacked, there was ransomware and other things, other problems, and everybody knew if you had COVID or not, which, I mean, shouldn't happen. Same thing, every single database of every single organism on the Argentinian government was leaked on the dark web. Everything they do it so poorly.
La acción estatal genera un daño más grande que lo que quiere corregir. Ejemplo, en Argentina quisieron corregir el problema con los alquileres.
By the way, okay, let's have him finish this sentence.
Pusieron una ley de alquileres, ahora estamos muchísimo peor.
So they created a law for renting property about 3.5 years ago. After they created that law that basically had limits on how much an owner can charge, and also stated that the price increase should be once every year tied to the inflation index. By doing that, many owners decided not to rent their property. They prefer to just have it out of the market, and it was times more difficult to find an available property, and as properties were so few, rent prices went high, way up high, like insanely high. The reason for that is crazy, because the reason was not there was something weird happening with the property market or renting property market. It was because inflation, and they wanted, so the previous government was so desperate about trying to keep inflation and its effects low that they tried everything they had at hand to work on solving the effects and not the cause. That's weird. And obviously they created that law that broke the market completely, and now that law doesn't exist anymore because Milei sent to the deputy, how is that called, to the Congress, so to take that law out. I don't know how to say that.
Quieren corregir los problemas del hambre, hay más hambre. Quieren corregir el problema de la pobreza, hay más pobreza. Quieren corregir la falta de empleo, hay menos empleo.
Yeah, so they do that. I mean, everything they touch, they break. And I was discussing with a friend that I met in San Francisco, in California, about a few years ago. And she was saying that, no, the government does very great things. And thanks to the government that it exists, we have things like social A plan, social X, many social plans. And she was working at one of these plans for the government, so she had a paying salary from the government, and her job was to receive the calls and to find out if these people who she was in contact with really needed the help or not. And what I was explaining to her was that the government is kind of organizes that, but the money she was in charge of approving wasn't the government money, was the citizens' money, was US taxpayers' money. So I would have said mine if I paid taxes in the US, but it's like her own money she was approving or not approving. And who was being kind to the persons that were in need? It wasn't the government. She was kind to those people in approving the money. So I tried to kind of divide. So it's not government, it's you and taxpayers' money. I was trying to explain that to her, but...
Bueno, cada vez que interviene el Estado, como es una acción violenta que termina perjudicando el derecho de propiedad, el resultado, y a la libertad, el resultado final es mucho peor que lo que teníamos originalmente.
Yes.
Y el Ministerio de la Mujer era evidente que lo único que iba a causar es daño a las mujeres, salvo a aquellas que se benefician de ser empleadas públicas.
You oppose abortion. Why?
Bueno, porque como liberal, o sea, liberal libertario, aclaro, porque en inglés liberal es distinto.
That's very important, and I'm happy that he mentions that. I don't know what liberal is in the US exactly. Please let me know in the comments. But I know it's exactly the opposite that a liberal in Argentina. In Argentina, a liberal is somebody who's pro-free market, pro-freedom, pro-capitalism. So that's a liberal. It's actually called liberal in Argentina. I know in the US, liberals are on the left side. Here on the left side, we call them either Peronists, or collectivists, or well, just plain out zurdo, like leftist.
Así que lo voy a decir como libertario. Nosotros creemos que el liberalismo es el respeto irrestricto del proyecto de vida del prójimo, basado en el principio de no agresión y en defensa del derecho a la vida, a la libertad y a la propiedad. Por lo tanto, adhiriendo a las ideas de la libertad, básicamente, una de las ideas fundamentales es defender el derecho a la vida. O sea, filosóficamente estoy a favor de respetar el derecho a la vida. Después hay una justificación desde el plano de vista de la ciencia, de las ciencias naturales, digamos, que es el hecho de que la vida comienza en el momento de la fecundación. Y en ese mismo momento se genera un nuevo ser en evolución, ¿sí?, con un ADN distinto. Es decir, es cierto que la mujer tiene derechos sobre su cuerpo, pero ese niño dentro del vientre no es su cuerpo. Es decir, el niño no es su cuerpo. Por lo tanto, el aborto es un asesinato.
So this is a complex topic. I'm not 100% with him on what he's saying. So I think it's complex. I do think abortion is murder, but the society went downhill so deep that it's like there are times that may be okay. I don't know. It's a tough decision. I prefer not to be in that situation ever. And the thing is, instead of creating a law to allow abortion, which is what happened in Argentina a few years ago, they should have worked harder to make it easier to adopt. So it would be, for example, saying, hey, you must have that baby and you must give that away in adoption. And that should be a seamless process. And adopting someone in Argentina is way too difficult. There's so much paperwork you have to do. It's not something that happens often. So it's like nobody really cared about that. And there's also a rhetoric about abortion, and that's one of the points that I'm with Milei. So he says that was never about allowing or giving more freedom to women, was about the rhetoric about being feminist and being woke and being all this that was behind creating this law, not about women. So yeah, that's true.
Agravado por el vínculo y por la diferencial de fuerzas, ya que no tiene forma de defenderse. Y no solo eso, sino que además hay una cuestión de índole matemática. La vida es un continuo, con dos saltos discretos, que es el nacimiento y la muerte. Y cualquier interrupción en el medio es un asesinato.
So I would think you're a Catholic, you said. You're just defending really the Catholic life principle. The Pope, the current Pope, is from Argentina. I would think he would support you. He has instead criticized you, and you've called him a communist. Why the disconnect?
It's not just the Pope. Okay, let's see what Milei says first.
Bueno, primero porque el Papa juega políticamente.
Yeah, he does.
Es decir, es un Papa donde tiene fuerte injerencia política. Ha demostrado además una gran afinidad con dictadores como Castro o como con Maduro. Es decir, está del lado de dictaduras sangrientas.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Can argue with that. That's true.
Raul Castro's a murderer.
Sí, y Fidel Castro también era otro asesino.
But the Pope, you believe the Pope has an affinity for Raul Castro?
Sí, exacto. Sí, tiene afinidad por los comunistas asesinos. De hecho, no los condena. Es decir, es bastante condescendiente con ellos. Y es también condescendiente con la dictadura venezolana. Es decir, él es condescendiente con todos los de izquierdas, aun cuando sean verdaderos criminales, lo cual eso es un problema. Pero además es alguien que considera que la justicia social, un elemento central de su visión, y eso es muy complicado, porque la justicia social, ¿qué es? Robarle el fruto de su trabajo a una persona y dárselo a otra. Entonces implica dos cosas. Una es un robo, y el problema es que el robo está en contra de lo que señalan los 10 mandamientos. Es decir, avalar la justicia social es avalar el robo. Por lo tanto, es un problema de que está violando los 10 mandamientos. El otro problema es que es un trato desigual frente a la ley. Y no me parece que sea algo justo, digamos, que algunos sean premiados y otros sean castigados desde una posición de poder como la que tiene el Estado, que tiene el monopolio de la violencia.
So when you look around...
Yeah, I'm looking for a piece of content here. So there was, let's check out the map for a second. So here on Argentina, once per year, you know, the main religion in Argentina is Catholicism. And there's a church in a place called Luján, which is this one here. This one here. And there's pilgrims walking to Luján Church once a year, and I went. I'm not Catholic, but I went along with a few friends of mine that wanted to go, and it was just a pilgrimage for me. So I went there, and so they closed a whole street during that weekend, so people can walk freely. And every 2 blocks there was a banner saying things against Milei. So this was, I think it was October, few months before the final election, or September, and there were banners saying things against Milei, and there were banners saying things like, let me see if I find this. Yeah, this one, for example. Organicemos la esperanza con justicia social. Let's organize hope with social justice. So this is the church. The person this is Luján. The person who's doing this is a person who speaks. He's in charge of Catholic Church in Argentina, and he was hoping that Milei lose the election. So this is how the church plays politics in Argentina. And the Pope does play policy or politics. And yeah, I mean, things changed. And now, actually today, President Milei invited the Pope Francis to come over to Argentina because he says his presence and his message are going to contribute to unity in the society, because society is divided, like in every other place of Western world. Okay, let's continue watching this. Does that make sense?
And it's fascinating to look around the city, Buenos Aires, and the architecture is a mixture of sublimely beautiful buildings and stupendously ugly buildings. And it feels like looking at an archaeological tell where the architecture corresponds to certain political eras. And I wonder if you believe that socialism, leftism, produces ugliness.
Esa es una primera caracterización de Argentina. En cuanto a lo que tiene que ver la Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires, cuando uno mira la arquitectura de la Argentina liberal es esa arquitectura que genera tanta fascinación y que es deslumbrante, porque es la arquitectura de la Argentina gloriosa, de la Argentina liberal. El mejor ejemplo de ello es el Teatro Colón. Es uno de los mejores teatros líricos del mundo, porque es el reflejo de esa Argentina pujante, liberal, admirada por todo el mundo. Y después, todas las edificaciones ya más cuadradas, digo, el mejor efecto es lo que en algún momento se llamaba del Ministerio de Obras Públicas o el Ministerio de Acción Social, es el que está en la 9 de julio.
Yeah, so he is referring to so let's see what he mentions. Teatro Colón. Teatro Colón is a theater that when it was created, obviously going to the theater was something important, which isn't anymore, but it's splendid. It's like very nice place. There it has art on the top of it, on the ceiling, and the building is just beautiful. And then if you go to Google Maps and you explore the city, you go to Buenos Aires city, this is Buenos Aires city, and you drop the little guy anywhere, but for example here you're going to see this kind of buildings. So these kind of buildings are from the rich Argentina, which is the kind of buildings that you see on Havana, on La Habana in Cuba, Havana. So obviously these buildings were created when Cuba was a rich place. And then no other nice building was built after that. Yeah. So yeah, same thing in Argentina. It's like after that, then you start having this. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good either. This is like budget, right? Same thing with any other place. You continue going and going, and you're going to see that rich Argentina building, budget Argentina building. Well, actually, this one's not quite, but yeah, it's not good either. So that's what he's saying. Couldn't disagree with that.
Un edificio verdaderamente feo, con características soviéticas directamente.
Yes.
I like his face. So he's saying that. So there's the other Argentina. The Argentina where, let's see, where we are at. So there's the Argentina. So this is this one, is an avenue that is called 9th of July, which is our Independence Day in Argentina. And this avenue is great. And here is the obelisk, by the way. This avenue is great, except for the fact that there's one building in the middle of it. So again, if you drop the little guy here, say, okay, let's go there, boom, and you look towards the obelisk, which is there. Let's actually switch lanes, go the right way so we don't go to the opposite. Okay, so continue going. Here you see the obelisk, and this is nice, very nice center of Buenos Aires city. And you can already start to see there's something there. And that's the building that's in the middle of the avenue. So let's go a few blocks there. Here, for example. Where are we looking at? Yeah, there it is. This image of Eva Perón is very recent, and it was added. So this is a government building, and the city government at that time was able to buy all the houses to build the 9th of July Avenue, 9 de Julio Avenida Creación, and they seized all these buildings because the government can do that to build that road, which is very, very important. For example, here you can see there it was plenty of buildings, and you had the obelisk in the middle. But now this is the avenue, and they were able to purchase all the buildings to make the avenue, except for one building which was owned by the national government. They weren't able to purchase that one because the government wouldn't sell that one, wouldn't allow that one. And now we have the avenue with a bottleneck here, and it just bothers me so much. And very recently they added this very Cuba-like style-like, as the Che shape is in Cuba, that is very famous. And this is so annoying. This building has a fun story, actually, which is the architect of that building was so mad about the amount of problems he had when building that, and there were so many how do you say this, fines. Fine is not the word, coima. It's like when somebody from the government asks you for money so they can get away, so you can get away with things. And that's why he added this as statue here, asking for a bribe. That's and that statue was there on that building for many years until they recently removed it, because it's a very bold statement to add on a public building. So yeah. And he's saying that that building is very ugly, and that is from the Argentina downturn, and not from the Argentina that is rich, which is very, very true. Obras públicas, edificio. Yeah, I mean, it's a dump. It's a kind of a square box. It's very ugly, and it's obstructing the most important avenue in Argentina.
Es lo que en algún momento se llamaba del Ministerio de Obras Públicas o el Ministerio de Acción Social. Es el que está en la 9 de Julio, un edificio verdaderamente feo, con características soviéticas directamente.
Yes.
Es más, en un momento había una estatua, ahora la sacaron, pero había una estatua que estaba en esta forma, con la mano así. Básicamente para reflejar una coima, que fue una de las cosas que hizo el edificio en repudio a la cantidad de coimas que le pidieron mientras que hacía el edificio. Esa es la arquitectura y cada vez más chat.
Don't even get me started with corruption in Argentina. There's so much at so many levels. You don't even want to start a business here because
Cada vez más fea y solamente las partes que progresan son aquellos que tienen negocios vinculados a los.
yeah, if you want to get rich in Argentina, at least up until now, that was the way it was. You had to have a friend in politics or become a politician. Also, if your customer was the government of Argentina, you will sell millions. You will be very, very rich. And I have friends who have friends in politics and they are making a lot of money. This guy is becoming president to change that. But that was the way it was up until now.
Políticos. Ejemplo, Puerto Madero.
You described the buildings, the leftist buildings, as square and plain and ugly. Why does the left love concrete so much? Your old buildings are built out of stone and plaster, but the newer socialist buildings are all concrete. What is that?
Porque tiene que ver con los valores de la izquierda. Digamos, los valores subyacentes en las ideas de la izquierda es la envidia, el odio, el resentimiento, el trato desigual frente a la ley.
I don't think he's explaining that properly. I don't think those are the values from the leftists.
Y la violencia.
Or socialism.
Entonces, todo ese altruismo socialista termina generando una contaminación de los incentivos que generan pobreza. Entonces, claro, digamos, cuando uno es pobre, digamos, la edificación que puede hacer frente por esa es claramente propia de alguien pobre.
I think he went sideways with that. I think the reason why socialism loves concrete so much is because they are thinking about being functional, not about being valuable or pretty. They hide the goodwill behind the collective, and they don't think about doing good for one person. They think about doing good for a collective, for a group of people, and that allows them to actually do the opposite, discriminate one person because it doesn't belong to a group, and it as an outcome, it ends up having very functional buildings, and you just need concrete and steel to do that. You don't need to make them pretty, because they don't care about people. They care about groups of people. So no single individual saying that building is ugly as shit is going to be cared, and no collective can have an idea of perception of a beauty of a building. So that's, I think, what it is.
Y porque esto es interesante, el socialismo es siempre y en todo lugar un fenómeno violento, asesino y empobrecedor. Esa es la característica del socialismo.
100%.
Socialism has become ascendant, really, in the United States, as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
With the attendant symptoms you described: massive public debt levels, increasing poverty, disorder, crime, filth, and ugliness. Argentina is at the end stage of that. Argentina is now a poor country because of those policies. What advice would you give to Americans having lived it?
Que nunca abracen las ideas del socialismo que nunca se dejen seducir por el canto de las sirenas de la justicia social, que no se dejen atrapar por esa frase nefasta que donde hay una ansiedad nace un derecho, pero que eso no se hace solo. Para eso hay que estar preparado y hay que dar la batalla cultural día a día, y que hay que tener cuidado porque ellos no tienen problema en meterse adentro del Estado y aplicar las técnicas de Gramsci, seduciendo a artistas, seduciendo, o sea, la cultura, seduciendo a los medios de comunicación o metiéndose en los contenidos de la educación. Hay que tener mucho cuidado, hay que cortarles el financiamiento y hay que hacerlos competir a la par, y al mismo tiempo hay que concientizar a los empresarios.
There's something here which is so socialism infiltrates in every space, in every aspect of our society. It infiltrates in branding of brands, it infiltrates in marketing, on school contents, on any Hollywood picture that I see, or most of them. And freedom is so respectful from individuals that it doesn't do that as much. It doesn't infiltrate because it doesn't want to propagate. It respects. And that's one of the reasons why this guy Milei looks like a crazy person, because the usual complaint here, and it's actually what the international media portrays of him, saying that this guy is nuts, that is violent, because he speaks very passionately about things, and he gets angry, really. It's like, I hate taxes. Taxing people is robbery, and he gets very mad when speaking about that, and everything the governments do to against our freedom, and then they judge him because he gets angry. I mean, I respect that, because socialism infiltrates in our lives without asking for permission. I had teachers on school talking to me about Marx. Why? Why will the government pay you a salary? You have to teach math, no Marx. Why do you talk about Marx in math? Time. That's bad. So we need to do the cultural battle, and this guy is all about that, and that's very respectable.
De que es necesario que más Milton Friedman decía que la función social del empresario era ganar dinero. Bueno, con eso solo no alcanza. Parte de la inversión tiene que ser invertir en los defensores de las ideas de la libertad, para que los socialistas no puedan avanzar, porque si no lo hacen, ellos se van a meter en el Estado y desde el Estado van a imponer una agenda que de largo plazo va a terminar destruyendo todo lo que toca. Entonces, ahí, es necesario un fuerte compromiso de todos los creadores de riqueza para luchar contra el socialismo, contra el estatismo, y entender que si eso no se hace, los socialistas siempre van a seguir intentando. Porque, ¿cuál es el punto? Como ellos intentan vivir de los demás sin trabajar, ellos son incansables en buscar esto. Porque su leitmotiv en la vida es vivir de los otros. Entonces ellos no ceden nunca en este mecanismo de apropiación de la riqueza y del dinero o de la generación de ingresos de otro. Entonces esa batalla tiene que ser dada de manera permanente. No se puede descansar, porque cuando uno descansa, el socialismo avanza.
Wow, that's a very, I mean, Carlson asked him, what advice would you give to the US citizens? And I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you stay without doing anything, socialism will cope everything because they don't rest. Why they don't rest? Same reason somebody who lives, who is like do scams, because the payment is for the effort they're doing. The payment is so big that it is worth doing that. So, for example, the revolution in Cuba. Did revolution work? It did work for Castro. It did work for him. So he lives like a king. So yeah, it did work. These guys, so in Argentina, like Kirchner, president, and others, Peronists. So there's a lot of terrorists that are members of that group, political group, and they wanted to be in power in the 70s by taking the power with arms. And that's why we had the military coup that took the government to fight back the terrorists that wanted to take the power. And then they saw that that wasn't working, and they started doing it the democratic way and trying to win elections. But they already had a lot of money because this was a Cold War. There was money coming from Russia or CCP and international left political parties, and also they kidnapped very rich business people in Argentina, and they had a lot of money, and then they used that money to become to take the be in charge of power, and they started obviously using the money from the government to make themselves very rich and increase their power and influence. And that's socialism. I mean, you can see that repeated time and time and time and time again. It's very hard to find somebody in socialism or in a left party that is not rich or very powerful. That's why I really respect this president from Uruguay. Presidents from Uruguay. He's an idealist. This Jose Mujica. He's actually given a great speech on, I think on the UN or where, talking about why work so much. I mean, why don't pursue money as much. And is this one. If you have a chance, take a look. I mean, it's a very good speech. Mujica, and he says, it's this guy. He says, to win in life is not win, is to stand up and start over again. I mean, that's just the subject here, but he's just talking about what's really worth or valuable in life. He's a very nice person, I think, and he isn't rich. He was the president. He was a terrorist on the 70s. He killed people, but he recently won an election on Uruguay, and he was president for a term, and he's not rich. He's a reasonable person nowadays. And yeah, you have to respect that. Doesn't happen with the Kirchners. They have stolen a lot of money, like a lot of money. And for example, they had on China embassy Argentina embassy in China, Embajada Argentina and China, the son of a terrorist from the 70s. This person didn't do anything with his life other than living on his father last name. That's his only value, that his father was a terrorist leader that killed a lot of people during the 70s in Argentina. And then during last presidency from the Peronists, he was given a position in the Argentina embassy in China. Obviously, China is a dictatorship with the CCP, the Socialist Party, ruling over that country, and yeah, that's the connection there.
Donald Trump is running for president again in the United States, as you know. What advice would you give him?
Que continúe con su lucha en contra del socialismo, porque es uno de los pocos que entendió cabalmente que la pelea es contra el socialismo, que la pelea es contra los estatistas, y comprendió perfectamente que la generación de riqueza proviene del sector privado. Es decir, el Estado no crea riqueza, el Estado la destruye. El Estado no puede dar nada porque no produce nada, y cuando lo quiere hacer además lo hace mal. Entonces, me parece que si yo, desde mi pequeño lugar, lo único que podría decirle es que redoble los esfuerzos en la misma dirección de defender las ideas de la libertad y de no darle tregua ni un solo segundo a los socialistas.
Do you see the climate change movement as part of...
He's actually saying, don't stop even for 1 second to fight against socialism.
The same socialist agenda?
Sí, es parte de la agenda de los socialistas.
Do you see the climate change movement as part of the same socialist agenda?
Sí, es parte de la agenda socialista. De hecho, el posmarxismo lo que viene a tratar de hacer es que, dado el fracaso en lo económico, que se hizo evidente con la caída del muro, aunque en realidad el socialismo fracasó en el año 61 cuando tuvieron que construir el muro, en rigor, ellos frente a esa derrota trasladaron la lucha de clases a otros aspectos de la vida. Entonces, por ejemplo...
It's just a very elaborate discourse that they have. It doesn't make sense to me how much people can be on that side. It doesn't make... I think what happens is that people see themselves as good people, and they may say, it's like, I'm a good person, I want everyone to be okay, to not to be poor, and for that reason this political party says they are going to be in charge of guaranteeing everybody's going to be okay. So I just have someone else take care of that, and I feel good about myself, and then I can keep going on with my life. I think that is what may be happening. Otherwise, I cannot understand how somebody can be a socialist.
La lucha entre negros y blancos, o sea, Black Lives Matter, todo, digamos, el lobby LGBT, todo lo que tiene que ver con el feminismo radical, porque hay que recordar que el feminismo como causa original es una causa liberal. El primero que impulsó esto fue Jeremy Bentham a mediados del siglo XVIII. Como parte de esa agenda, también está la agenda del hombre contra la naturaleza, donde el hombre es el que daña a la naturaleza, cuando en realidad el mundo ha tenido otros picos de altas temperaturas como tiene ahora, es un comportamiento cíclico independientemente de la existencia del hombre, y que si los precios fueran libres, esos problemas se arreglarían sin ningún tipo de problema. No necesitamos al Estado regulando, porque cada vez que el Estado regula las cosas empeoran más. Y además, esa agenda, tiene una parte mucho más oscura, que es una agenda asesina, que es la agenda del aborto.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting too many things on the same bag. I think the human action is accelerating that process a little bit. But I'm more worried about contamination, that climate change. I'm worried about the ocean and radioactivity and things like that. Like contamination, I mean, there are rivers that are violet in China and other places as well. Yeah, I wouldn't deny and say that human action doesn't have anything to do with climate change. But, yeah.
Porque como consecuencia de que los humanos le hacen mal al planeta, entonces promueven el asesinato de personas en el vientre de la madre, que es el aborto. Por lo tanto, es una política que siempre falló en el mundo, pero no solo porque es tremenda porque falla siempre, sino porque además es una política sangrienta que determinados seres humanos se creen estar en situaciones de decidir quién vive y quién no. Es decir, es como una máxima expresión de la fatal arrogancia, donde cómo un ser humano va a determinar quién vive y quién no. Es decir, eso es lo que quiero que quede claro. Los socialistas tienen las manos manchadas de sangre. Todo el tiempo tienen manchadas las manos de sangre. No les alcanzó con nada.
Are you arguing that socialists commit bloodshed because they believe they are God?
Porque ellos se creen que son Dios. Es decir, son unos herejes. Es decir, por eso Hayek...
I mean, obviously there's people who believe themselves can decide or can design how the society works. I mean, if you ask any person and you put any person on charge of that, everyone is going to have ideas on how society should work. But nobody can dictate that. You can leave people to be people, everybody do himself, and then society builds up on its own. You cannot dictate how things happen. And there's people who put themselves in charge of that, and they take that action, and that's too bad.
En su último libro, esto lo llamó la fatal arrogancia. Es decir, porque para coordinar todo este tipo de acciones, la cantidad de conocimientos que hay que tener, y eso está vinculado a otro artículo de Hayek que se llama El uso del conocimiento en la sociedad, donde da una forma más científica y profunda de la idea de la mano invisible, de Adam Smith. Lo que dice es que para poder aplicar el socialismo es necesario que las personas que lo hagan deban ser omniscientes, omnipresentes y omnipotentes. Es decir, creen que son Dios. Y le voy a contar algo. No son Dios. Y les voy a decir algo peor. Son tan miserables y tan rastreros los políticos, y en especial los de izquierda, que además están debajo de las personas promedio. Porque solamente, ¿quién va a pretender ser igual al promedio? Solo el que está por debajo. Por lo tanto, es la agenda de los envidiosos. La envidia es un pecado capital. De eso nada bueno puede salir. Del asesinato nada bueno puede salir. Del robo nada puede salir. Entonces, volviendo al Papa Francisco, ¿por qué defiende una agenda que defiende el asesinato, el robo, la envidia? Es raro, ¿no? Es decir,
So why does he? What's the answer?
Yo creo que debería darla a él.
Camera
Es
is
decir,
too
porque
hot.
a la luz
Camera went out. Camera's too hot. Fixing that.
del debate, a la luz de la evidencia empírica, él es el que tiene que dar explicaciones de por qué defiende una organización económica que conduce a la pobreza, a la miseria, a la violencia, a la decadencia, y que si los dejaran destruirían el mundo. Sería una explicación, que lo explique él. Yo no soy socialista, yo soy liberal, libertario.
You've said that as president of Argentina, you will not do business with China.
De hecho, no solo no voy a hacer negocios con China, no voy a hacer negocios con ningún comunista.
This is very widely misunderstood because what he's saying here is not that he's going to forbid any Argentinian company to do business with any other Chinese company or government. What he's saying is that right now, by that time, the previous government, it was entangled politically with other countries to build up power together. So, for example, the past president said to Russia publicly that Argentina was the gate to enter and to spread through Latin America. And he invited Putin to kind of come over and expand his influence on Latin America through Argentina. That is what Milei means with what he's saying, that he won't do that.
Es decir, a ver, yo soy un defensor de la libertad, de la paz y de la democracia. Los comunistas no entran ahí, los chinos no entran ahí, Putin no entra ahí. Digamos, Lula no entra ahí. Es decir, nosotros queremos ser el faro moral del continente. Nosotros queremos ser los defensores de la libertad, de la democracia, de la diversidad,
And he's becoming that.
de la paz.
I'm very happy.
Entonces, nosotros desde el Estado no vamos a promover ningún tipo de acción con comunistas, ni socialistas. Eso no quiere decir que los argentinos no puedan comercializar. Si quieren comercializar con China, con Rusia, con Brasil, con quien sea, problema de los argentinos.
Do you pray for wisdom and guidance?
Bueno, me consta que hay mucha gente orando por mí. A mí me da mucha felicidad mucha gente que, por ejemplo, va al Kotel, o sea, al Muro de los Lamentos en Israel, y dejan peticiones por mí. Así es que yo me siento bien. O sea, pero aparte estoy convencido de lo que estoy haciendo. Así digamos, la vida...
That is so relieving when you do something that is in line with what you believe from your heart and you're not acting. He's not afraid to say what he thinks because he's actually saying what he believes in. He doesn't have to act or to impersonate a character. And that's very freeing.
Sin libertad no merece ser vivida. Es decir, en algún momento me preguntaron si yo estaría dispuesto a dar mi vida por las ideas de la libertad. Y yo estoy dispuesto a darla.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't get killed, though.
Y busco ser testimonio de esa forma de vivir en libertad. O sea, la esclavitud me parece algo horroroso y voy a dar la pelea por las ideas de la libertad todo lo que la tenga que dar. con las consecuencias que eso traiga, porque hacer lo correcto no se negocia.
Interesting. Last question. You said there's this enormous state workforce, government workforce in Argentina, but you said that you would not lay them off immediately until you built up the private sector economy because you worried there would be violent protests. Are you worried that there will be violent protests or violence against your supporters over the next month before the election?
No me preocupa porque yo voy a gobernar con la ley en la mano y la ley en mi gobierno se va a cumplir y el que las hace las paga. Y además no tendrían por qué quejarse porque, digamos, no van a ser afectados en las reformas de primera generación. Y cuando tomen lugar las reformas de segunda generación, ellos mismos van a dejar de lado esos trabajos en el sector público por una cuestión de incentivos, por una cuestión de remuneración. Por lo tanto, no debería ser un problema. Pero si aún así quisieran hacer problemas, nosotros vamos a aplicar la ley. Y aquellos que cometan disturbios y aquellos que violen la ley, los vamos a meter presos.
Do you believe law enforcement is on your side?
Entonces no estaría funcionando la justicia. Y en realidad,
What does that question mean?
Do you believe law enforcement is on your side?
It's like, does it mean that that's like police is going to be against him if he wins the election? Like, is that a question? It's very weird.
Entonces no estaría funcionando la justicia. Y en realidad, yo voy a estar trabajando además activamente para que la justicia sea verdaderamente independiente y pueda actuar libremente. Y ahí, digamos, aquellos que violan la ley y que violan la Constitución tienen que pagar por eso.
Up until that time, so the budget of justice was managed by the executive power. You know, there are three powers, and they should be independent. But justice is not independent if the current political party in charge of the executive power is also in charge of the budget of the justice. So that's what was happening, and he wants to change that.
Por lo tanto, en una justicia que se le dé el respaldo político para que sea verdaderamente independiente y trabajar en las reformas para que sea verdaderamente independiente, no veo por qué no deberían apoyar. Si no, no sería justicia.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of justice working in favor of whomever who's in power currently over the past few decades, and that's a shame.
Javier Milei, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So this guy ended up winning the election, and he's now president of Argentina, which is insane. Let's see if I can turn the camera back again. Do I? Yeah. Okay. So this guy Milei won the election, and he's now in charge. And I can talk about the things that he's doing, and he is heading towards closing the central bank. He's not doing that right away because first you need to do some cleansing of the numbers there for it to work out. But he's going to do that. He's going to, if he fixes inflation in Argentina by closing the central bank, there's going to be a revolution of libertarianism in the world, and we're going after the Federal Reserve. I hope. So I want to show you one thing, or maybe I'll save that for later. I'll save that for a specific video talking about the Federal Reserve and the central bank and what they have to do with each other. And this was, up until here, this was just reacting to Tucker Carlson Milei interview, who finally ended up winning the election in Argentina and becoming the first anarcho-capitalist libertarian president in the entire world history. Thank you so much. If you're watching this, leave a comment, hit the like button and subscribe and turn on the bell. See you on the next one.